I'm Matthew Kurbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. There's a lot to cover. I will say the last time I gave this presentation at ABA Tech Show, just last month, I easily could have talked for an hour and a half. So that's the time that I have for everybody today. We may not take up the full time if I do just fly through this thing, if there are no questions, but feel free to ask questions. I will say that there is a focus in this presentation on the technology itself, less so on how to use the specific technology. But again, if anybody has a specific question on how to use a particular piece of hardware or software, there's less of a focus on that because, as you'll see, there is so much to cover in today's presentation. So with that, I'm Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney. I have an award-winning tech-powered law firm, and I'm a true solo practice attorney that I try to automate and have the most efficient practice as possible wherever I can because I don't bill by the hour. But even that being said, today's presentation is not about the business model of law. But everything today that I'm going to be talking about, I think you could think about how can we use this to make our firm more efficient. I, for one, fall more into the category when speaking about tech stacks for the modern virtual law firm and this guide that I'll be giving you today. I do tend to prefer for best of breed technology. And basically what that means is I don't prefer these all-in-one solutions that claim to do everything. We're using generalist all-in-one solutions. They're going to be mediocre or maybe even kind of good at some things or a lot of things, but not the best at everything. Nevertheless, that doesn't need to break the bank. So getting started, let's move right along here. In today's session, here's what you're going to learn. You're going to get a high-level overview of hardware and software. I'm going to discuss cost and purchasing strategies, which I think is an often under-taught topic when it comes to the hardware and software or the tech stack is actual buying strategies, right? Core selections. So I'm actually going to be giving you here's what I think you need from my entire tech stack. Because I will say, if it is in this presentation, I am using or have used the hardware and software in this presentation. There are a few minor exceptions to that, in that maybe there's a piece of hardware that's no longer available, or there was software that I was using and I thought it was really interesting and maybe you should use it too, even if I'm not really leveraging it the best that I can. But I have at some point or other gotten my hands on all of this, and I've done extensive research, watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, actually getting my hands on it, be it hardware or software, and testing it out. I do have versions of CLEs where I'm like, here's the 10 different solutions to solve this kind of problem. That is not today's presentation. These core selections that I'll be suggesting and suggesting the rollout of those solutions, those are going to be what I would have done if I could go back based on the lessons I've learned. And if I were starting a law firm again from scratch, or if I was reinventing the firm, how I would roll things out. So when I say core selections, that's what I mean. And so the implementation and explanation of use, right? So I'll kind of be doing a little bit of this throughout the presentation. I don't have a dedicated section to implementation and explanation, but it is covered in today's CLE. So I want to make sure that I had that in here, that's something that you'll learn. So I talked a little bit about this, but anyway, I've been practicing law in small firm setting for over 10 years. I launched my virtual law firm in March of 2022. And I've been subscription-based since the very beginning. I've ditched the billable hour. I don't track any time whatsoever. So that means that I have always been incentivized to be efficient and spend less time on things, because when you're not billing by the hour, less time equals more revenue to my firm and more value to my clients, right? The faster you have turnaround, the more value there is. And so when you're not billing by the hour, it's the inverse relationship between time and money. The less time something takes, the more money you make. I was just speaking at the American Association of Matrimonial Lawyers annual symposium for their Northern California chapter just this last weekend. And a lawyer asked me, he said, how do you learn about all this different technology and stay up to date with all the AI? And I told him, it really just comes down to this bullet point. And I was giving a different talk there, but this bullet point, because I am financially incentivized to find, how do I make things take less time? And so it's a worthwhile investment to do the research on the hardware, on the software that help you achieve that goal. And even if you're still billing by the hour, eliminating non-billable hours, super, super important, right? So my target market is the latent legal market. So that means that my market are clients who have been long unserved by attorneys, right? Because they can't afford the billable hour unless they have no other choice or they have to take on debt or they really don't like paying the billable hour and they need pricing certainty. So that means is I've gone down market. So they don't expect a brick and mortar location, a place to meet me. And if they do, that client is not a good fit, right? So like, again, emphasis on the virtual law firm here, right? By going down market, I don't need to be in a suit every day, right? I'm almost never in a suit anymore unless I'm at a lawyer event, which I still like to dress up, but it's not necessarily necessary for me, right? But almost all of my conversations with potential clients and clients are on video calls, right? So having a really professional video presence makes a heck of a lot of sense, right? So we're going to be talking about that today too. And so what I'm able to do though, and part of the reason I'm able to have affordable pricing is by having a virtual law firm, my overhead is really low. So I'm able to pass along those savings to my clients and at the end of the day still have a really high margin on the services that I'm delivering, even at the prices that I'm offering, which some lawyers can scoff at from time to time. But believe me, I'm profitable. But investing in technology allows me to stay profitable. Right? Now, in addition to that, I'm a long-running legal podcast host and producer and legal content creator, so I'm creating a lot of content. And so a lot of this equipment I'm using not just in my practice, but also in how I market and promote my practice. Now, another thing I think that is important because I think most lawyers tend to really maybe like technology, but maybe they're not technical or they maybe get scared of it or afraid of it. But here's the thing. I'm a true solo. And I have a non-technical background, and I've used all of these tools, and I figure out how to use all of these tools, right? If a law degree is good for anything these days, it makes us really good at asking questions, and it makes us good thinkers. Well, all of the hardware and software come with manuals, and the companies that sell them to us have FAQs or knowledge bases on their website. They want us to learn how to use these tools and maximize them. So it's really easy to learn how to use this stuff. Again, my background is in philosophy and law. I am non-technical. If I could figure it out, all of you could figure that out too. So disclaimer, right? And this is an important disclaimer because especially those of us who really love technology, we think, oh, yes, I have to get the newest computer, the newest iPhone or the newest software or whatever. And like now that's all I need. It's going to make me the best or whatever. Well, I just want to say that purchasing all this equipment or software will not make you successful at implementation without first carefully considering and adapting the tools to your particular circumstance, right? So you might already have some of the equipment that does some of the things that I'm going to recommend, or you might have a software solution that is a scheduling software solution, for example. I love Calendly. We heard John mention Calendly earlier today. Like there are other scheduling softwares out there. Like I think there are good reasons maybe to switch over to Calendly, but also just realize that maybe you don't have to, right? Same thing is true of hardware, right? Now, I am a Mac user, right? So that's not to say, turn off this presentation. If you're all in on PC, you're never going to go Mac. There's still a lot for you to gain from here, but I will only be talking about Mac, Mac OS, iOS related software and hardware. Right now, a lot of the software is in the cloud. It's agnostic. It doesn't matter which platform you have it on, right? But at least with some of the hardware, that's going to be Mac focused. Well, that part just won't apply to you, right? So it's okay. And I just wanted to make sure I had that disclaimer in here before I continued, right? Now, the other thing I want to say is soon you're about to see exactly how many hardware and software tools I use. You're going to see the market cost if you were to go out and purchase all the hardware and subscribe to all the software at the most expensive today. I do not recommend you do that, right? We're talking about like thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And you're going to see the exact numbers in a minute here. You do not need to do that. Again, later in the presentation, I have a recommended rollout schedule and implementation recommendation. So you don't need to, in order to be a good and effective virtual lawyer, go out and buy all the hardware and buy all the software, right? So keep that in mind, right? Now, realistically, for most of this hardware and software, I acquired over 3 years. Now, not all of it. Some of it I had coming into my own firm, and you may have that coming into your own firm too, or if you're thinking about doing a refresh or launching your own practice, right? Like you already have existing stuff. It took me at a minimum 3 years to acquire most of this. And I almost always got a deal. Now, we're going to be talking pricing strategies and deal strategies here today. So you're not going to have to spend the full amount. Yeah, and so again, just because you have the technology, it doesn't make you a good lawyer, right? You still need to be a good lawyer first. That's the most important thing. And look, everybody's different. Right? Everybody's different. So results may vary with your use of these tools, right? I found success with these tools. Now, what I don't talk about is I don't talk about here's all the things I tried that I didn't like. That would be too long of a presentation. So I'm just going to tell you what I tried that I like, that I'm using, that's good, right? And finally, like, while I will be talking about purchasing strategies, that includes credit cards, that includes points, like, none of it is financial advice. It's only for educational purposes only. And frankly, like, some of this may or may not be expensible. So you have to consult with a CPA about what you can and cannot expense. Right now, and I will say also on that point is, if you are just starting a new business, there is like they don't even, from what I understand and what I was told when I started a little over 3 years ago, there's like a certain amount of money that you could spend where like it's all expensible. Like the IRS like won't even look at it up to a point, right? So you want to talk to your CPA about that if you're thinking about starting a virtual law firm from scratch. So yeah, again, just it bears repeating, no financial or legal advice given in this presentation. Everything is for educational purposes only. So with all of that, we're almost done with the caveats, right? So prices change all the time other than Apple, like there's really not discounts. So just keep that in mind. This is a snapshot of the present moment in terms of what these things cost. Like some of the subscriptions go up, some of them they go down. Prices change all the time, right? Again, unless you're Apple. Products change all the time, right? So what a software solution maybe used to do, it doesn't do anymore. So keep that in mind. You always want to continue to do your own research, right? Hardware updates happen over time. So the hardware might become better. It might become worse. The hardware might not cooperate with the software from time to time. That happened to be once being a Mac user and using a software solution called OBS, which I don't use anymore. So keep that in mind. There's a reason I don't use it anymore is because then OBS would have to update when Mac OS updated, and they didn't always communicate ahead of time, right? So I mentioned this earlier, but this is not a comparison tools of CLE, right? This is like here are the things I'm using. Like that's the way that I like to give this presentation, right? And again, I also kind of mentioned this, but some of these things are no longer available, but I do have alternatives. I found alternatives if some of the hardware is no longer available. Hardware does get discontinued, right? But it also can be purchased secondhand. So even if new hardware is discontinued, there are some instances where getting it secondhand is actually, frankly, probably a better deal. And we'll talk about that, right? So why a virtual law firm? Well, I already kind of talked about this just a little bit, but just it bears repeating, right? Client expectations have changed. AI is speeding up work, reducing billable hours, right? When you're a virtual law firm, the focus is on profit over revenue. Like, do you really need to be that $1 million law firm? Do you need to crack that $1 million in revenue number? What is that going to cost you, right? Is it going to require an in-person location? How much staff is it going to require? And then at the end of the day, what is the profit? How much money are you putting in your pocket? So I think when you're a virtual law firm and you're looking at your annual operating expenses and your overhead, and the goal is to keep it as low as possible, you have a focus on profit, of how much money you're actually able to put in your pocket rather than how much money you're just bringing into the firm, right? So for me, what does this mean? This means I like to think of it as I'm a lifestyle law firm, right? Rather than trying to build this big law firm. Like being a virtual law firm, you could just build a practice that sustains the lifestyle that you want to live, including savings goals and other things, right? Without having to reach certain revenue thresholds that are just made up numbers. And what it also means is remote outsourced help, is easier to find, right? So whether it's virtual assistants or law clerks, my Legal Extern program at legalextern.com, like as long as the law school approves of the credit hours for externing with my firm for the semester or the summer, like that, I could work with a law student from anywhere as a law clerk, right? Same thing is true with associates or other partners, or expanding your practice to be multiple jurisdictions or multiple practice areas, right? So just being able to remote outsource help, you're able to do that a lot easier in a virtual law firm when you're thinking about how to build relationships virtually and not have to have a hybrid environment. There are companies and law firms out there that are doing the hybrid thing, and it's really, really hard, it turns out, because if you just have an in-person culture or just a virtual culture with a focus on that, then all of the resources in developing cohesion amongst the team are focused on that type of working environment, right? I've seen really successful companies, not necessarily law firms, because some of them are just trying the hybrid thing if they used to be in person, but I've seen successful companies do 1 or 2 annual on-sites where they all come together for a weekend or for 1 week a year or for 2 weekends a year, and that's where their in-person cohesion happens, and then the rest is virtual, but you could focus on that, right? So the other thing is it increases market opportunities for potential clients, right? Like, so my practice is throughout the whole state of Illinois, right? And I have clients throughout the whole state, and I have clients outside of the state transacting in the state of Illinois. And so since I don't have a brick and mortar location, and I'm a virtual law firm, it's like there's no expectation that they're going to come and meet me in person anywhere. That being said, 70 to 80% of my clients are still local because people hire you because they know, like, and trust you. But even then, since they're local, I'll make a house visit from time to time, and my clients seem to really like that. It allows for flexible work-life integration. Look, at the end of the day, like whatever word you want to use, you could still use work-life balance. But for me, when you own your own business, like it's part of your life, right? Like it just becomes part of your life. And I have a separate office in my home and a separate recording studio within that office that I'm in right now. That's a small closet, but large enough that I could fit a small desk in here. And so I still have like it's segmented in my home. So it's a totally separate space from where I'm spending time with my family. And I realize living in the suburbs, I have the luxury of space. Not everybody could do that depending on where you're living. But when you do a virtual law firm, I find that instead of trying to keep things purely separate, it allows for that balance of integration. So let's look at the hardware, right? Here's the hardware. Holy moly, that is a lot of hardware, right? Well, it looks like a lot. But at the end of the day, what I want to point out about all this hardware is I went deep, right? I went down to even like each individual kind of wire, each individual kind of plug, extension cables, wire covers, right? Like I literally tried to figure out every single type of hardware solution I have. And this is all the hardware in my practice, right? It's all right here. It's kind of a lot, right? Yep, Cetaphil sunscreen. Because here's the thing, when you're bald like me, you want in your travel office to be able to just pull out some sunscreen and rub it on your head. So if you could hold it, if it's tactile, if it's physical, all of these things, and even like some of the things on here, like the Logitech Circle View. I have a home office, right? That's a doorbell camera. Like I'm really thinking about everything, right? And the far right side is more of the like miscellaneous category. I do categorize all this stuff, but like from left to right is more like higher tech hardware. And then the further right you move, it becomes more like lower tech, but still hardware. Right? All right. So the software and platforms. And one of the reasons why I refer to it as platforms is like I'm going to include on here, you'll see LinkedIn, right? Like I still think about that as a web-based software solution, right? So here's all the software, right? So not quite as much as the hardware tools, right? But here are all the software and platform solutions, right? A lot. So let's first figure out how many hardware solutions. Okay, 107 pieces of hardware, right? And the hardware, again, it's somewhat used loosely in that it's something that's tactile, that's related to my practice or when I'm out and about, right? So that doesn't include multiples. So for example, I have a chair in my studio and a chair in my main office. So those are duplicates. So really, if you just started counting up the duplicates of things, it's going to be more than 107 total items. But at least as far as unique individual pieces of, hardware, again, we're using that term broadly, 107 different types of hardware. For software and platform solutions, you're looking at 82 different solutions. Now, again, it's an accurate number, it's a true number, it's a high number, but realize that some solutions, like if you're in Microsoft 365, which I am not, I'm in Google Workspace, one solution comes with multiple different tools within it, right? And so I'm including those in this, right? So for me, that's Google Docs, right? That's Google Drive, that's Google Sheets, right? And all of that. And I also include Microsoft Word because I still use Microsoft Word. You have to in this profession, even when you're in Google Workspace, right? So that means you might only be paying one price, or you might buy a hardware solution that comes with a software solution as part of that, right? And so sometimes, like if you buy, like for example, the microphone that I have, that has a software solution that comes with that, right? So you're not paying extra. I'm not paying for every single one of those software solutions every single month or every year. So if you were to go out today, and I don't recommend that you do, and buy all the hardware, you're going to be looking at a spend of approximately $17,000. And it looks like a lot, but again, if you have a brick and mortar location, what's your monthly rent, right? Like you might be spending more than that annually just on 1 year's rent. Think about that, right? Now, if you were to spread that over 3 years, and I didn't quite buy it in this way, I bought it very differently. I waited till I had significantly more revenue, and I took advantage of some of the purchasing suggestions that I'm going to recommend. Comes out to, a little under $6,000 a year, right, for 3 years. So $472 a month. So again, what are you paying for rent for brick and mortar location, right? It's more than $472 a month. For software, the annual subscription, if you paid the most expensive version of all of these software solutions that are paid, you're looking at about, and platforms, because again, I'm actually including bar membership fees in that because I think of that as a platform. And look, we're here on a Zoom for a CLE technologically, right? So I consider bar membership to be a platform because you want to think about, especially when you're a subscription-based law firm, what's your outgoing revenue and incoming recurring revenue. So outgoing recurring, incoming recurring. And I just like to think about everything that's a subscription as a subscription. So even bar membership is a platform, right? So if and I'm not actually spending $11,500, but if I were spending full price on everything, it would be approximately that amount, right? So that comes out to $956 a month. But again, you could save, you could already start reducing that just with annual payments, let alone other bundling and other discount codes and other kinds of ways to get discounts on that kind of thing. And I should say all of this is before taxes, right? So it actually gets more expensive when you start factoring in taxes. All right, so now you might be thinking, okay, WTF, right? Look at all that hardware, look at all that software, like WTF, I need a working technology framework. Okay, all right, so let's talk about a working technology framework here. Don't feel overwhelmed. Right? That's why you're here today. That's why I'm giving this presentation. All right. So, I've done the research. I've demoed hundreds of software tools. I wish that was, I could probably put it's over 200 software solutions. I've tested the hardware. I use the software I'm currently recommending, right? So you don't need to buy everything all at once nor subscribe to everything all at once. I'm going to explain all of that. I'm going to give you this framework, this working technology framework. Okay. So you may have already you may already own some of this tech. You may already be subscribed to some of this or similar solutions. Right? So don't get overwhelmed, and we're going to spread out these purchases over 3 years, if not more, right? So let's talk about purchasing. So for purchasing strategies, what you want to do is you want to pay attention to seasonal deals on credit card signups. So for example, if you've been in business long enough, you may already have the Chase Ink Business Unlimited card, all right? And so what that gives you is 1.5% back on all of your purchases, right? Well, I knew I would get this credit card eventually because I knew it was out there. I knew it existed. But what I did is I waited until last year in November where they were offering a deal of $900 if I spent $6,000 in 3 months. And to give even a little bit of inside baseball on the way that these points work and they're giving you $900, what does that mean? Well, the way that the IRS has treated that is they've treated it as a rebate rather than income. Historically, typically, right? Obviously not financial advice. So the way that works is it's just treated as a rebate on your purchases when you get these points back, and they give you $900 as soon as you hit that threshold and the next statement comes through, right? So for me, I had a Mac Mini M1 machine that was over 3 years old. And so I knew I wanted to upgrade that because it was starting to get slow in doing all the content creation and online stuff that I'm doing, that I wanted to upgrade that when the M4 chips became available. And Apple talked about that last fall. And so I strategically planned, because that alone was going to, just upgrading all my Apple hardware was going to cost $6,000 at a minimum. So I made strategic purchases also during Black Friday and Cyber Monday so that I could hit that $6,000 threshold within the 3 months and get the $900 back. And I happened to get the $900 back before the statement was due. So really, I was only paying $5,100 on the ultimate statement when that came through, right? And of course, I planned my financials otherwise in my firm around this. But that's a pretty substantial discount, right? So if you plan your upgrading of your equipment around these types of credit card deals, and I'm giving you one that I just took advantage of, they're out there all the time, right? So pay attention to things like that. Now, right, I also I turn on automatic payments. So I'm always up to date on payments and everything, right? And I have a spreadsheet that's my monthly nut of for my firm and for my personal life where I know here's the 3 credit cards that I have out there and any other direct debits outside, right out of my firm account and operating account. So I know exactly what my monthly nut needs to be, that monthly price that I'm going to have to pay. That's automatically deducted, and I just make sure I have at least twice that amount in my operating account at all times, right? And I also have a separate firm savings account that I always transfer funds over that amount, double that amount that I need. That's my automatic monthly withdrawals. I move all those funds immediately into my business savings account, right? So the other thing to consider, and this is just financial strategies that I've learned, again, not advice, but strategies I've learned, is you don't sign up for more than one new business credit card every year, right? Because that does go for a ding against your personal credit too, and you have to think about what's going on in your personal life. But you have personal credit and you have business credit, right? And those are two separate things. And then what you do is you set up 6-month reminders. I also do this for my personal credit cards, but I've been doing it for my business credit cards as well, because there are certain providers, credit card providers, they don't ding your credit. It's not a hard credit check they can increase your credit limit every year. And I don't change my spending But every 6 months from the last request that I made to increase a business credit card or a personal credit card, I go into the accounts where they allow you to do it without checking your actual credit history, and they increase your credit limit. And when you don't change your spending and you increase your credit limit, that increases your personal and business credit score. So if you ever did need credit, then you're going to have really phenomenal credit. And I've been doing this strategy in my personal life for well over a decade, and now I do it for my business as well. So for subscription-based law firms, right, going back to this is my model. What this does is this just helps you understand your monthly and annual recurring revenue to better predict a good time to purchase, right? So like if I know what my monthly recurring revenue is going to be, I know what percentage of that month is going towards this hardware upgrade, for example, right? Or maybe I'm going to be spending more than I'm bringing in that month, right? So you just have to be strategic about it. And when you have recurring revenue, it's easier to help make these types of purchasing decisions. So on some more purchasing strategies, are you an Amazon Prime member in your personal life? Well, guess what? If you are, and you are the owner or partner of a firm, you can, for free, sign up as an Amazon Business Prime member. So that means that you could start taking advantage of Business Prime deals for free if you're already an Amazon Prime member. And if you're not an Amazon Prime member in your personal life, it might be a good reason to do it because you actually get some pretty good deals on Amazon Prime. In particular, what you get is you get access to, and I also have the personal Amazon Prime card that gets you 5% back, is you get access as an Amazon Prime business member to the Amazon Business Prime Amex credit card, right? There's no annual fee for an Amex. That gives you 5% back on Amazon purchases. Now, with the exception of Apple, although I did buy my iPad through Amazon, right? Now, there are some things Apple, like their phones, like their computers, they will only sell directly through Apple. Or if you want more customization on the features in those hardware tools, you're going to need to buy it through Apple. But with Amazon, you might be able to get $100 or $200 off, even Apple things. And if you get this Amazon Business Prime Amex credit card, you get 5% back at a minimum if it's sold by Amazon right now. Now, sometimes what you could do, and if you really strategically plan this out far in advance, you could say it's no rush to ship it. And that might go up to a higher percentage, right? You might get up to 6% back or more if you do delayed send. Now, again, they don't charge you until it actually ships. So again, if you're trying to get that minimum spending threshold, you have to be careful about this. But you could end up saving a lot of money. Like we're talking about major purchases here sometimes. So you could get 5% back. Now, when I signed up for the Amazon Business Prime Amex credit card, I think they were giving away like a $300 Amazon gift card. And that's how I bought my audio mixer, to make my audio quality sound significantly better, right? And so, take advantage, like even if they're not giving like a money back, they might, like for Amazon, seasonally throughout the year, they'll give you a substantial gift card for Amazon, right? And it's up to you and your CPA if you're going to use that personally or going to use it for your business. I decided to use it for my business, right? So again, spread out purchases, wait for rewards to show up, right? So if you're getting 5% back, maybe wait another 30 days until the statement goes through so that you could tap into those rewards, right, when making future purchases. And this is one of the cards where for my business, because I haven't had the Chase Ink card long enough that I know if they do a credit check. But for this one, every 6 months, I've been able to increase my credit limit without them doing a hard check. So maximize your rewards in light of each amount category, right? So Ink gives 1.5% back on everything. That's why I use it at Apple. That's my default credit card payment for my software subscriptions because I'm getting 1.5% back. One of my other banks gives me 3% back on restaurants. So if I'm treating a client or if I'm doing something out, at a restaurant or I'm traveling, this is the card I use because I get 3% back on those things. It also gives 3% back on gas or at electric vehicle stations. And if I book through their website, I get 5% back through this bank credit card on prepaid hotel and car rentals, right? Now, so I'm not actually doing the car rentals thing, but when I have had to travel for work, if I'm doing a speaking engagement or something, getting 5% back, that's pretty excellent. So, so for the Amazon card, you get at least 5% back unless you want to do delayed shipping. I've seen up to 7% back on Prime Days. And I think this July, it was announced we'll see Prime Days in July. The other thing, and this is crucial, both for personal life and for business, you usually don't need brand new, like especially for a lot of the stuff. Now, for like the hardware, like your actual computer for whatever you're going to be, doing computing on, you probably want to get new just because for us as lawyers, we're handling highly sensitive information. These are our, this is where that client information will be held in addition maybe to the cloud or external drives. That you're probably going to want new. But for everything else, Like an Amazon warehouse deal is basically somebody bought something and they opened the box and they changed their mind and they sent it back. Maybe they used it a little, but it was still in its original packaging when they received it. So Amazon will give you anywhere from I've seen from 10% to 50% discount on some of these things. So you can really get amazing discounts if you look for Amazon warehouse. So definitely don't forget about that. And if you really want to be a deal hunter, and I am, then there's this great website called camelcamelcamel.com. Yes, camel 3 times in a row.com. And you put in the link of the item on Amazon that you want to purchase, and you could see what has been its pricing over the last, really it goes back years, right? Are you getting a good deal on it relative to what its price has been previously? That's a website you could go to. Because again, of the 107 tools I have on here for hardware, you could buy most of them, if not all of them, except for a few Apple items, all on Amazon. So banking strategies, right? Because again, when you're purchasing this hardware, some of it's really expensive, including the subscriptions, right? Some of the subscriptions are more expensive than others. I do auto pay, right? So just make sure it's on auto pay. I talked about this already, how I keep a spreadsheet with all the amount, and I add an extra 1,000. At a minimum, an extra 1,000. Lately, I've been doing just double. And look, for me, as far as paying myself as a true solo law firm owner, I just found it was easier since I'm not doing, at least right now, I'm still a pass-through entity. I don't pay myself a salary, treat it as an S corp. That may change for my next year's taxes. But at least for now, I found it easier, and I liked my business bank so much, I just moved over personal accounts there too. And it just makes managing finances and paying myself without fees just that much easier. And it also allows me to, so you should look into your bank if they do this. I could integrate other accounts so I could still see all of my financials in one place, whether it's in the spreadsheet that I have or directly inside my bank account when I sign in. All right, so that's the purchasing strategies. Now let's get on to the topic that maybe all of you are actually here for, and that is the hardware. All right, so here's my main office hardware, right? It's a lot, right? But I really went down and picked every single little thing that I use, right? So here it is, right? There's a picture of it. So I'm just going to go back, right? Does it look like all of that is there? It is. It is, with the exception of maybe I have on here my blue light blocker glasses, which I actually tend to keep in my studio. I will put them on right now so you can see what they look like, although they will maybe connect because they're Bluetooth connected. But this is what they look like. They're a little goofy looking, but they are blue light blockers. And they have speakers in them. And so that way I don't have to have earbuds in my ears, and I wear them when I'm on the screen, when I'm looking at a screen, and little things like that, right? So that's something that you're missing from this picture. But otherwise, this picture contains everything inside of here, right? When you really get down and you count little by little, it all really adds up, right? So for my main office, here are some general tips. And again, whether you're going to be purchasing the exact hardware that I'm using or not, and you don't have to, this is just I recommend it, I'm using it, right? I have a focus on ergonomics for sitting and typing for the longest part of the day, right? And what's cool about doing this on Zoom is, I could show you some of these things, right? Like my mouse is an ergonomic mouse, right? But when I'm in Zoom or I'm in a client meeting, I use a trackpad, because I want it to be quiet and I don't want there to be clicking because I have a high-powered microphone and it's going to pick that up, right? So I use a trackpad for that. I have an ergonomic keyboard, right? It looks kind of funky, but you get used to it and it's better for your wrists, right? So I also I'm sitting on a cushion. I have a footrest, so my feet are at an angle so that I have better circulation when sitting down for a long time, right? Now my office chair itself is not ergonomic in the tradition, over-engineered ergonomic sense, but what I do purchase is and I'm not sitting on it now because it does make me get taller than I like, but I purchase cushions for my chair, and I have a back cushion as well. And so I've turned my chair ergonomic. And the reason I did that is actually I don't think you could get them for $99 anymore, but Costco, which is another great place I have a business Costco membership too. Costco, I think they're $130 now because of tariffs and everything's more expensive. But I got 3 of these chairs in my house from Costco that were $99, right? And I really like them, and they're ergonomic enough, and I've made them more ergonomic, right? Sticking on the ergonomic side of things, I have curved monitors, right? So if you go back to this picture, this is actually it's an ultra wide straight monitor, and it actually is up to 5K. That's probably overkill to have a monitor that's up to 5K quality. I've found, and if I could go back, I probably would just do a curved monitor, because in my studio here, that's right outside the door for me right now. My monitor is curved and it's much more ergonomic. And I just really like the curved monitor. And it was actually more affordable than the 5K ultra wide, right? So even though my main office setup has a flat ultra wide, consider an ergonomic one. That's if I could change it and go back, I would. Something else I want to point out is optional portable items by design, since they're smaller, cheaper, and can be used for travel. So for example here, over on the left side of my desk, that's a Canon printer. Now I don't have to print things very often, but it comes with an attachable battery so that you could literally print on the go. Right? And a carrying case you could purchase as well. And all that's in my travel section. But a lot of these things you could pick up and go, right? Like my mouse and keyboard are the only and my trackpad are the only wireless things because I could take them from my office into my studio. But definitely, and so even if you're not purchasing the exact items that I'm recommending, I like smaller items that are travel built, right? And another one is right in the center here. It's hard to make out in this picture, but you'll see, and I have links to all of this on the last slide. I have a link that you could click on that you could get links to all of these. That is a 3-in-1 iPhone, Apple Watch, and AirPods charger that folds up and you could put in your pocket or a travel bag to go for travel, right? So it's actually designed for travel first, but I use it every day. And when I leave the office or I'm going downtown or I'm doing something else, I could bring that with me, right? So portable items by design is part of your purchasing strategy for your hardware setup. Now, again, even though they're portable by nature, in my opinion, even if you buy it secondhand like through Amazon Warehouse, it's worth it to get higher quality items that get things done fast, that last long, and eliminate clutter, right? Those are the key. High quality that gets things done fast, lasts long, and eliminates clutter. So the ScanSnap, Fujitsu ScanSnap, I think it's not called Fujitsu anymore. I think they got bought out. But like that scanner is the best scanner. And it's expensive, but it's totally worth it, right? Organization items, like there's like those Velcro wraps and cable covers, anything that helps with safety, especially if you have kids or pets, it gives peace of mind that all those things are there, right? Now, I don't have a standing desk. I know some lawyers who are all about their like hardware setups and they have standing desks. My desk, I actually got in an estate sale. So look at estate sales. That's the way to get it too. And I really liked it. It was actually from a lawyer who it was a former lawyer's desk. So consider a standing desk, though, if you're into that kind of thing. For my studio, and so this is really important, especially as it relates to Chuck and John's talk, right? Because in my studio is where I create all the content that I put out there, right? It's also where I take all of my client calls because I want to sound really good and look really good, right? And then to Chuck's point, if you have a media call, same thing, right? You want to look good and sound good. So the studio is really important. And actually, when I was getting started out, I didn't even have my main office set up. First, I started out building out my studio with that process in mind. Now, also at the time, my wife was also working from home. She's 5 days in the office now. But I needed a more secure environment to preserve confidentiality when speaking with my clients with a spouse who's working from home. And the studio also provided that to me, right? So again, because this is about a virtual law firm tech stack, right? So things like that are really important. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. I just want to show you it is a lot. It looks like a lot. It's like almost as much as what was in in the main office setup. And here's what it looks like, right? So I have, and it's really like what it looks like right now. I have these two, they're called key lights. And the reason I have two lights on a shelf, so this desk that I have has a built-in shelf. Now, it's hard to find desks with built-in shelves like this, but depending on where you are, even if you're not going to do a separate studio and main office setup, you could just put a shelf above your desk, right? And there's also an alternative. This prompter that I'm looking into right now, the reason I use a prompter is because I could look at the screen that I want to look at. If it's a Zoom meeting, I'm looking into the eyes of the person I'm talking to and the camera, because the camera goes behind the teleprompter. Right? And so I'm able to look like I'm looking right into the camera and I'm looking at my slides, right? Pretty incredible. And it really helps you make eye contact. Now, teleprompters can get into the thousands of dollars. This teleprompter, I got it on a Black Friday deal for under $200, right? Directly from the manufacturer called Elgato. And again, there's links to all of this stuff. It's all in there, right? Now, this teleprompter is on a camera stand that is clamped to my desk. And so if you can't find a desk, because this desk has been discontinued, if you can't find a desk or you don't have room for a shelf because you're up against windows, like my main office is, what you could do, and I have included in the links, because every single piece of hardware is included. I have the stand that the teleprompter is screwed into that's clamped to my desk. You could buy 2 more, and you could attach these lights to that, because these lights are adapted to be screwed onto that kind of a thing. And then that way you could get it. And the reason you do 2 lights is because then it gets rid of the shadow, right? So I have 1 light above because I'm in a closet, and then I have 2 lights pointing this way to eliminate shadows. And if I put 1 down, you'll see the difference that it makes, right? If I put both down, this is what I look like. There's shadow on my face, right? Well, when you just do a little bit of lighting, it makes a huge difference for how professional you look on camera. Right? Like, I'm not even wearing makeup. Like, I understand I could probably even improve my on-camera appearance if I did a little bit of powder makeup or something, but I'm not that crazy. But I do love technology. So as you see on the bottom, I have the footrest that I talked about, and we actually have 3 of them in the house, 1 for everywhere that the chair is, because again, my wife does have a work from home setup as well. But you'll see there's lots of cables back there, but I have some of them wrapped up either with the cable covers or with the Velcro straps. I also have, since I'm in the studio closet, I have these soundproofing blankets. And the reason I pick white is because it reflects light, and the one behind me is a green screen, but it's the same material. Well, if I'm in here for an hour at a time, like I've been now, like until I started talking on my presentation, I had the door wide open, but now the door is shut for audio quality purposes. Well, I have those moisture absorbers. So if you've ever been to like a Home Depot or a hardware store, you'll see that they sell those for relatively cheap. I have them on Subscribe and Save for Amazon because they're in here. They're absorbing moisture so it doesn't get too hot, and everything stays like healthy and secure in the space in that regard. This is what it looks like from above. Right? So my microphone is actually just off camera. So if I go back, you'll see it a little bit in the left photo. But you can actually see my microphone because, again, this is a hardware setup, not for professional content creators, for lawyers. We are lawyers. We want to look professional on camera. My headphones are clear behind-the-ear headphones that are connected to an extension cable that go up behind my ears so that I could still wear headphones so that there's no audio feedback between my speakers and my microphone, but I look professional on camera. My microphone is off camera, but I'm about a hang loose distance away. If you extend your thumb and your pinky, that's about how far it is from my microphone, right? So it's just off camera. And the way that I do that is I have it attached to a boom arm mounted from the ceiling, right? And the reason you'd mount it from the ceiling, well, first of all, it's to get it off camera because we are professionals and we don't want the judge or our clients or media to see a microphone. We are not professional content creators. We are lawyers. But also it has the added benefit of it reduces vibrations. And so if it's on your desk and you're typing or you're doing other things, it's going to pick up those vibrations if your microphone is on your desk. So by having it mounted from the ceiling, that's the best place to put it, both for vibration purposes, but also when you are a professional on camera like we are. And then the picture to the left, you'll see I have what's called a bass trap in the corners of my office because on occasion I might just be on a phone call, not in a video call, and I'll just take that from my office since I'm the only person who works from home in the house now. So it still helps with sound reverberation in the main office. That's why I have that out there. And that's what it looks like. That's what my studio looks like. It's just the closet in my home office. So again, ergonomics for this setup as well, right? Wherever you set it up. I already mentioned about the trackpad, right? Totally worth it. And sometimes it's nice to just be able to pinch and zoom. I have behind the ear clear headphones, right? Talked about that, right? And the way that I put it is since I have this ergonomic cushion for a backrest, I just have it through that strap and I hang it back over the back of my chair whenever I'm done using them. The way that I've set it up for my exact setup, if that's what you want, is your audio mixer does have a place for headphones, but I actually plug my microphone into my audio mixer, which has different settings on it, and then I have my extension cable actually from my microphone. So inside of my actual, like in my Mac operating system, when you click on your microphone and audio settings, I have it set for Audient for the mic, but the Shure setting for my headphones, for like my speakers, right? So for microphone, I have Audient, and for speakers, I have Shure. Now, you could set it up differently, but I found this really works really well. And I still have my Shure microphone plugged directly via USB-C cable into my Mac Mini M4. And the reason I do that is Google does not play nice with my Audient audio mixer. And so I have to also opt in sometimes if I'm on a Google Meet meeting or if I'm taking a call through Google Voice. Now, these are default settings in Google now, so I don't have to change it anymore. But it actually picks up my USB-C connection to my microphone rather than through my audio mixer. Now, that does mean it's a lower audio quality, but it still comes through. I mean, and we're talking about a minute difference between audio quality, but I'm a stickler for it, obviously. And so, yeah, I talked about the lights and the shelves, right? So the camera mounts that you could use. So for setup options, right, I'm going to show you my minimal setup, my bare minimum setup, my studio only setup. And these are just examples, right? Adapt it to your existing setup. So here's my minimal setup, right? This is the hardware and this is what it costs, right? And this is like literally everything, right? So if you want to have a setup that's just like mine, that's not everything, but you really wanted to get as close to it as possible, as soon as possible, which I don't necessarily recommend you do. It's personal preference. And if you pay full price, which I also don't recommend you do, it would cost $8,340. And here's what each individual thing costs. And I really wanted to lay this out for you because I just did not see anything like this out there for lawyers, let alone for like anybody trying to come up with like a hardware tech stack. Like what does it actually cost? So here's what it is. And again, prices fluctuate. I mean, here's the office chair that I'm using, right? I don't know if Costco still carries it, but you might be able to find it under that name. And again, I have links to all these. If some of them get discontinued, but you could just do a search and find these, right? My bare minimum setup. So if you were like, well, okay, I don't want to spend over $8,000, but I really like the setup. Well, here's what I recommend that you use. And that'll cut the price in almost half, right? Just over $4,000, right? $4,319.80. If you still want a really good setup, and really the biggest price here, if you'll see between these, is it's the computer, right? It's the M4. I have the M4 Pro with AppleCare. If you just get the Mac Mini M4 without the Pro, you could significantly reduce your costs, right? Like that's most of the cost savings. We went from $3,500 to $600. Right? Now, for most lawyers, unless you're going to be doing a lot on the content creation side like I am, $600 M4 Mac Mini is more than enough, way more than enough power, right? It's more powerful than whatever you're using right now. For $600, in terms of pure power for a machine, if you want to have your own monitor and keyboard and mouse like I do, because I like the ergonomics and best of breed, like this is, I mean, it's just my personal opinion, but from all the research I've done, the base M4 Mac Mini for $600 is like the most powerful computer on the market, right? Like there are literally AI companies that are setting these up, like just as like processing machines because they're so cheap but so powerful, right? For the price for what you're getting. So if you want to focus more on a studio setup, here's my recommendation. And again, you could take it or leave it with all of this stuff, right? Take what you like, leave what you don't. But if you already have a good office setup and you just want like an at-home or an in-office studio setup, here's the equipment that I recommend. Again, like at a minimum, like I already gave you the maximum, right? Like the maximum is there. It's available. That's that list I gave you in the beginning, right? Showing all my hardware setup. But if you want a minimum viable studio setup that's still high quality, it's about a $3,000 setup. So at least as far as the cost for each one of these things, this is the most affordable at just under $3,000. And again, I could spend an hour-long presentation just explaining how to set these up and how to use them. That's not the nature of this presentation, but I'm happy to answer any of those questions if you have it and go into detail on it. For my travel and mobile office, right? I mean, we haven't even hit the hardware yet, or the software yet. We're just been on hardware. So some of these things are duplicative, right? So like you don't need, and the reason I like the Tumi bags is, yes, they are significantly more expensive. But my Tumi backpack, which is the Alpha Bravo Willow backpack, that I have had for over a decade. I just took it on this 48-hour trip with me. It was the only thing I brought, and I wore my suit to this legal conference that I was at. Right? So I've had it for over a decade. It is in perfect, pristine condition, and I've used it to travel. It used to be my main backpack that I brought my laptop, back when I had a laptop, to the office every day. And so it's gotten a lot of use, and it is in amazing condition. When I did have a Tumi briefcase and there was damage to it, I took it to Tumi and they fixed it for free, right? And I don't know if they're going to do that anymore. Now, the Alpha Bravo crossbody, that's just the perfect size to fit the new iPad M4 Pro. The iPad Pro, that's the M4 chip. It perfectly fits it with a keyboard, and so I wanted to shrink what I was bringing with me when I had to go somewhere, if it was a local travel rather than like a hop on the plane type travel. And because less is more, and I want to carry the least amount of stuff as possible, right? Now, I gave alternatives to those, right? So some of these have alternatives because the Willow backpack, I don't think you could find it anymore. So I put an alternative version on there. So again, I'm all about best of breed. But when if I were to take everything, I could probably fit everything in just my Willow backpack that's on this list. And if I couldn't, then I'd be bringing both my crossbody and my backpack. And while that might look a little weird, I could have a fully mobilized travel office with a printer, with everything, right? Because my focus is always on portability and shrinking the size it takes up on my desk. So for the travel or like the mobile office, depending on how you like to think about it, right? Some of these are in my, like, you're not buying these things twice, like the portable 3-in-1 charging station, right? There are alternatives on there, right? There's 2 different kinds of tripods, but I've used both of them. They've both been fine. One is for a more of a camera setup or other things that you could set up, and one is just for a clamp that like clamps onto a phone or an iPad. So you may have different purposes for that, but like when I'm recording a podcast like live at a legal tech conference, I like to bring the one that just has the phone grip because it's kind of like a selfie tripod, but it is still a tripod, and that works really well. So I like that one, and it shrinks up and it gets really small, right? The other one is like it's got like a carrying case and it's got like a strap. It takes up more space. It depends on what you want. So even though I said I could pack everything up and go, I almost never do, right? So I kind of have 2 different versions that I might take with me depending on how long I'm going to be out of the house, if it's just a day or if it's for several days. So like my local one for bare minimum would be that crossbody, right? Because like less is more when working remotely or when going to meet a client somewhere or something like that. And then I have another one, the backpack is for more gear, right? And even though I can bring my printer with me, I have only had to do it once, right? And I put it in my backpack at the time. So if I really wanted, I didn't have my crossbody yet, but today if I was bringing my printer, I do have a separate carrying case that's designed for the printer, and I would probably just bring that separate carrying case because I want to bring as little as possible. And again, just it bears a reminder, like I'm not actually suggesting you go out and buy everything. Everything is optional. Pick out what works for you or find an alternative. Here's everything, right? This is what each individual item costs. And the reason I didn't give a total for this is because if you just wanted to build a mobile office, or if you wanted to build a mobile office and the other things, you're already going to have some of these, right? So I didn't actually give a total here because some of these are, you don't need 4 backpacks. Pick one, but I just wanted to show you what each individual thing costs as you're making your purchasing decisions. I think that's important. So again, I'm all about recommendations here. So my minimum travel setup, right? If you wanted to just have a minimum on the go travel setup, it'll run you about $2,500. Right? Now, some of these things you're going to already have, right? Look, I'm including my iPad in here, my Magic Keyboard, right? Like you probably don't need 4 Apple AirTags, but it's such a good deal. They're usually $25 a pop. You could get them 4-pack for $70, and you could use the AirTags for other things, right? But I have an AirTag in every single one of my bags. And the batteries, do I have the batteries on here? I do. So the batteries, because you replace the batteries, like I went deep, right? Like even batteries for your AirTags are on here, right? I have those on Subscribe and Save for every 6 months. I get new batteries, right? The batteries tend to last more than 6 months, but it's good to have extra batteries for that. Software. All right, we made it. We made it through hardware. Now we're into software. We've got about 40 minutes left. That's more than enough time to cover the software. Okay, here we go. And feel free to drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A. I'll keep an eye on it. So for software, I thought it made sense to have categories, right? So like here are your categories. I'm not going to spend too much time on all these categories because we're going to be going through them. But even still, that's a lot of categories. And frankly, I just made this up. I did not follow a guide on here's how you categorize different software, right? Like based on the way that it made sense for me to think about all my software, these are the categories that I came up with, right? And again, I do have a talk that has all the different competitors to these software solutions, but here they are, right? And so again, I'm not going to spend too much time going through each individual one, but you'll see I've got a couple for marketing, right? I even include LinkedIn Live, right? So I've got LinkedIn, the platform. Where do I even have that? Under networking, right? Under networking, I have LinkedIn, right? When I think of like software categories that fit into networking, but I've carved out a feature. Again, I'm just kind of making this up, right? Like I've made up some of this stuff. So like, yeah, there's 82 software solutions, but like really like LinkedIn Live is like one part of LinkedIn. You could argue that it's really only 81 because LinkedIn Live is a subset feature, but it's so unique. And they don't even make it easy to find where to do the Manage Your LinkedIn Lives tab that you have to do a Google search to find that URL and then save it as a bookmark, right? So it's almost like it's totally on a separate platform, LinkedIn Live. But I've carved that out because it's so important. It's like I'm doing 2 or 3 LinkedIn Lives a month now, right? And I think that's really important. So again, there's a lot of stuff on here, like even the scheduling, right? It has Calendly in there, but it also has Calendly's Chrome extension. Why? Because I'm almost never going in the Calendly app or going to calendly.com. I just tap on you can see it right here. You see it right here. That's my Calendly extension, right? So I could click on that button and I could click on the one-click use link and I'm off to the races, right? So like I really like that. Another one I'll call out here is the iOS Passwords app. So if you're a Mac user, if you have an iPhone, you no longer need to pay for a Passwords app. Now, if you attended our joint session with the Committee on Technology and Law Practice Management, then we talked about password apps. So this is the one I use. And you'll see there's this other extension right here on Chrome that lets me access that, right? So absolutely love this. I have very strong, complicated passwords. I'm approaching 700 of them, right? For all the different, like if you really like break down how many different passwords you have for things. Now that includes personal life, not just firm, but I've almost 700 passwords. That also includes if you count my spouse, because we have shared folders in that. So if you include my spouse and me, but I'm probably like over 400 of those passwords, right? When you really start collecting all your passwords in one place. And the iOS Passwords app makes it really easy to do that, but you have to keep your software up to date, or some of these, and everybody you're sharing it with, otherwise some of these folders become unavailable. So word to the wise for that, right? Again, I'm keeping bar associations in here for learning, right? Under like the learning software category, you've got your Lawline or whatever your CLE platform of choice is, right? Or bar associations, like the Chicago Bar has its, I forget what it's called, but the Chicago Bar has a reasonable price for its CLE. So that would be included under here. I don't quite carve that part out, right? Because that's hard to do. And I wanted to make this obtainable for anybody, and everybody's got different bar associations, right? Now, something else that I want to point out on this screen is I do include my internet and mobile, right? Because I work from home, right? And I my mobile, cost for my phone, for cellular and for data and all that for my smartphone. So I'm including that in here, right? So that $11,500 figure, that also includes my internet and phone plan, right? Because realistically, yeah, that's something you have to pay for. Now, is that what you traditionally think of as like a software category? Well, again, it's software/platform, right? This is all of your outgoing spend that's on a regular basis, whether it's monthly or annually. That's the way to think about this type of stuff. Software, it's easier to draw people in with that. So again, just little disclaimer there down at the bottom that most of these are bundled, free, or come with hardware purchases. So let's talk about the paid software. Here it is, right? I've got 21 paid tools. Now, there's tons of value at these prices, I would say. What's not included in here is Stripe, because I use Stripe for payment processing. So, I will say some alternatives are, your LawPay or your Confido Legal, if you wanted a legal specific one that has pretty similar pricing. So out of every transaction that goes through Stripe, which is most of them for my firm, there is a 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction fee, or up to 8% with a $5 cap for ACH transactions. And so it's hard to track that because it really just depends on your firm revenue. So, arguably my software cost is higher, right? Because if you factor that in, but it's also highly variable based on how many payments I'm taking through the Stripe platform that's integrated with my client portal solution. So again, sort of something to keep in mind. And my client portal solution here is SweetDash, right? At $180 annually, right? So these are the annual fees, right? So yeah, again, Confido Legal is 2.95%, and there's no extra fee per transaction, right? And they are an alternative. And if I ever, now thanks to Illinois changing the rules on fees, I'm probably never going to need to do this. But if I ever needed to take any fees into my IOLTA account that I could not get like a written check for, through Confido Legal, I could do an ACH transfer or a credit card payment into that. And the 2.95% is paid for out of my operating account. So those client funds or those fees I'm holding in escrow are never touched. So that's why you'd use a LawPay or a Confido Legal. The transaction fee is paid for out of a separate account. So those other fees going into your IOLTA or client trust fund are not touched. You can, if you want, use a Confido Legal or a LawPay to set up a subscription. Now, LawPay doesn't really do it in a way that I like for my practice, But if I did have to sort of start all over and do it again, Confido Legal wasn't available when I launched my firm. They were still like testing things out through another payment platform called Gravity. But I'd probably start all over and I might just use Confido Legal. So you could just run subscriptions all the way through there, right? But at least where I really like Confido Legal, but they're just not integrated into my virtual law firm. So that's why they're not in here, but they're worth a mention. So not included in this chart on the right are the bar fees. My bar fees are, I'm rounding here around another $425. My shared workplace mailbox, which is also not on here because it's sort of unique to my setup, is another $540 annually, right? And so even though I don't have a brick and mortar location, ironically enough, our local shared workspace is called Brick and Mortar, right, in Deerfield, Illinois. They have some in some other towns outside. It's more of a suburban focus. I think Park Ridge was their first location, and they're opening up one in Libertyville. I think they might be opening up a couple in the west suburbs of Chicago. But for $45 a month, I have a mailbox at a location, like a mailbox, so that's my firm address. But I could also go and meet a client there and rent a private space for $25 or $30 an hour. So it's a really good deal. So I highly recommend if you go virtual, it's still good to not use your home address. So the shared workplace, if you're downtown, that could be like a WeWork, for example. VentureX is a little bit more of a high-end one that's also in the suburbs. But that's more of you'd really subscribe to VentureX if you're probably going to go there every day. And it's way more expensive than the $540 annually. So the cost for Word on here, I got it at Costco. I found Costco had the best deal on Word. If you're a Costco member, $150. Now, you also get Excel and PowerPoint as part of that package. I never use them because I'm all in on Google. But if you wanted the best deal on Microsoft Word, that's the most up-to-date version. And it's just a one-time purchase, so eventually you're going to have to buy it again probably. $150, not bad. So my total annual software fee, not including the fees, the prices above, just comes out to just over $10,000. And again, I'm getting deals on many of these. So I'm getting these for less than they're listed. Either I was a beta user and I still have a deal, or I pay for it annually, and I get a deal. So there's different ways to get deals on some of these things. So I'm actually not paying the full $10,000, but if you were to subscribe today at full price, that's what you'd be paying. But again, there's no need to subscribe all at once, right? I hope drive that point home enough. So my suggested rollout. Again, this is really important. Okay, there's the technology, there's what it costs, but how do I implement? In what order do I implement it? Well, here you go. Starting out, this is what I suggest, right? All the top tools are free, right? Calendly through Zoom. Sign up for free, right? Test it out. See if you like it. Maybe you need some of the advanced features sooner than the other, but you could at least sign up for free. Google Workspace starts at $6 a month. You might just want to start out at the $12 a month level for reasons I'll explain soon, but at a minimum, right? $6 a month for a professional email, which I get my domain through GoDaddy. In hindsight, I probably choose something like a Cloudflare, but I am where I am and I'm of the age that I'm at. And so GoDaddy, I've been with GoDaddy for decades, so it's hard to not be with GoDaddy. For Adobe Acrobat Pro, this is the annual fee. However, this is the one example where I actually recommend you do the monthly fee with Adobe because it's the same price as doing annually. Most places will give you a discount if you pay for it annually in advance. Not Adobe. It's the same price. So just do Adobe monthly, but just to understand the total cost for the year, I have their annual total on here. And for Word, again, this is a one-time payment, right? The last time I paid for Word was 3 years ago. I'm only going to pay for it again when I absolutely need to, right? But it's only $150. So eventually I will. So that's the total. Right. So for the whole first year, your software spend could be under $700. That's pretty reasonable, I think. So now, just for comparison purposes, because you are going to have to pay for your phone and internet. Now, you're already paying for it, but you're not necessarily thinking it, if you have a true virtual law firm, as a firm cost. And again, talk to your CPA about it, what percentage of it is expensable on your taxes. But when you factor in phone and internet, at least for me, right, the total comes to a little under $2,000. Right. So when you think about all the costs, just like I think about all the costs, right, for that annual software cost for operating your business, if you include phone and internet, a little under $2,000. So the upgrade order that I recommend is this order, right? So again, plug and play in whatever order you want. And I will give a little explanation here because we have the time. But Calendly lets you create multiple event types and have many single-use links out there when you start paying. right? And we're talking about $120. Like, it's not expensive. It's not expensive to do that upgrade. So I cannot recommend it enough that be your first, I guess 1 and 2 Google Workspace. You might want to flip those for reasons I'll explain in a second. But what I do with Calendly now, what I've started to do, this is very recent, like super recent. Like, I think you're like the second audience to even hear about this. I'm going to be talking about it a lot. What I've started to do with Calendly as a subscriber benefit for my clients, and whether or not you use the subscription model, this is still really good. Your clients no longer your clients, although I do this for all prospective clients too, but they no longer need to call you and try to get a hold of you, right? What I do, and you can only do this with the paid version. Again, it's $120 a year. You make a custom URL just for that client, right? That they are to add to your contact in their phone. And so, and I started this with my best clients who just call me whenever they want. And I said, hey, and now I'm just starting to do this for all my clients. And I said, hey, I know you call me sometimes I'm not available. It's probably because I'm on another call or I'm in Do Not Disturb because I'm engaged in deep work, when I call them back. I said, here's the thing. I'm going to share a link with you. Add it to your contact in your phone. And if you try to call me and I'm not available, you could click on that link and you could see when I'm next available and you could schedule a call. So you're going to get me, right? And that's actually now trained them to just do that and not just try to call me, right? They're scheduling calls with me. And depending on what client level they're at in terms of, for me, how much they're subscribed at, inside of Calendly with each individual link, you could set up different availability. So like my highest paying clients can schedule time with me within 30 minutes, right? I'll have at least 30 minutes ahead of time to prepare for the call. When I get notified, it gets scheduled on my calendar. My lowest paying clients, 24 hours, right? They could book with me the next day when I'm available, 24 hours from the time that they book. And if it's at the end of the day, it's ultimately going to be 2 days, right? And they're paying less, so that's the type of access they're getting. It's less access, right? And it's all automatable inside of Calendly with the paid features, right? Now, what you could also do is you could automate buffer time. So at the end of a meeting, you'll always have a minimum of however much time you set, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. I have a minimum of 15 minutes between every call. And why do I do that? So I could be magnanimous. Oh, we're about to go over. Oh, it's okay. I have a few more minutes. Let's wrap this up. I really think this is important, right? So I think having that buffer time automated is totally worth. Just each one of those features on their own is worth the price. And the moment they become not a subscriber or not a client anymore, you just delete that link or turn it off. And now they can't schedule stuff with you, right? So amazing. So totally worth it. Calendly is a core part of my practice and frankly, my life. And so I can't recommend that enough. That's why it's number one. Number two is Google Workspace. And here's why. When it comes to AI, the features you get that you're already paying for with Google Workspace are so good. Okay. And so like a few months ago, they started to bundle in their most advanced Gemini and Notebook LM Plus features that you used to have to pay an extra $20 a month for. And they said, instead of paying an extra $20 a month, let's just give it to everybody who's paying us $12 a month or more. And the reason they did that is nobody was using it. And they're so good. Okay. Like I have a whole presentation all about AI. And if you're using no other AI features, you should at a minimum, if you're a Google Workspace subscriber, be leveraging all of their AI tools, especially Notebook LM Plus. I don't have time to get into everything about Notebook LM Plus. If you have a free Gmail account, you can go to notebooklm.google.com. Now, none of your information is going to be private, but when you become a $12 a month subscriber, and actually in July, they're bumping up the price to $14 a month, but still, right? I'm going to have to update this presentation, but for now, you can still subscribe there. Notebook LM Plus tells you the moment you sign in, all of this data is yours. It's all private. We're not training on it. It's secure. You're an enterprise level user, and then you could click on it and you could read their enterprise terms, right? Like they want people using this product who are paid Google Workspace users, knowing that it's a secure space. So unlike other AI platforms, even Google's own Gemini, it's answering you based on the training data and on anything that you give it in that chat. Like if you could attach a document or something, right? What Notebook LM does is it creates a private, secure database that you create. The free version has 50 sources in there, what they call Notebook. The paid version that you get for free with Google Workspace, it's included, has up to 300 sources. So I don't know about you, but I could fit pretty much any client file into a notebook, right? And now I could query against the whole client file. And it's only giving me answers from the data set, not its training data. And so I am using Google's NotebookLM Plus side by side with the next tool on the list, Paxton. And it's doing a pretty comparable job for not a legal specific tool. Now, Paxton does a lot of things NotebookLM Plus cannot do. But what it does do a really good job of is it gives you citations, right? And we, the lawyers, we need citations, right? So it gives you citations from the sources that you gave it. And then when you click on that citation, it opens up a window side by side. So you could read the analysis that you asked for, and you could read the actual source at the same time to verify that it's correct. Oh, it's amazing. I could go on and on. The last thing I'll say about NotebookLM Plus that comes with Google Workspace, which is why it's so high up the list, is there's another feature. This is what it went viral for, is you could turn anything into a podcast of a male and female host talking to each other. They're AI voices, but they sound very human. I found they occasionally pronounce words wrong like live or read as live and read, depending on the context. It doesn't always get that right. And acronyms, they will sometimes pronounce them strangely. Like instead of saying RAG for RAG for retrieval augmented generation, they'll say RAG. So like it's not perfect, but it's really interesting. And it gives an audio summary of the documents that you've attached. So if you wanted to create an audio summary for your client, you could even go in there and you could give it instructions. You could say, based on the attached sources, please create an audio summary from a lawyer to a client about what's in here. Factual accuracy is really important. Do not go outside the scope of the sources, right? Now, you're not probably going to, it probably won't anyway, but sometimes it's good to like give them extra guidance. And then when you click generate in less than 5 minutes, you'll have, and you could also say, keep it within 10 minutes or 5 minutes, right? It will have an amazing summary for you. Like I've put in this presentation and I've listened back to what Google's audio summary came up with in NotebookLM to like give me ideas on how to present this topic, right? Really, really interesting stuff. Finally, what you could do, and this is in beta, but this is so cool. And if you have kids who are in school, here is their tutor for them right now. You could have a conversation with your documents. You create the audio summary, and then you click the beta feature that says join with live audio, and you click on that. And then as these AI hosts are going through their audio summary, their podcast of whatever sources you've attached, you can interrupt them. And for me, like if I'm putting in one of my CLE slide decks, I'm saying, oh, hey, it's Matthew Kurbis. Hi, I'm the author. Actually, I was wondering, is there anything that's not clear inside these documents? Anything that I've left out of these slides that somebody who's listening or watching the presentation, might be curious about? And then they'll answer me based on those slides. It's unbelievable. It is so phenomenal. And if I'm with a person and I'm like showing them this, I could say, hey, can you skip to the part about the purchasing strategies? Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. Let's skip to that part. It is so amazing. Like this should be a tutor for every student that's studying any materials to have a conversation with the materials, right? I mean, it's so incredible. And it's in beta. It's only going to get better. Like if you're a litigator, like you could put in your opponent's brief or your brief. It'd be like, tell me the strongest arguments from this brief, or like have a conversation back and forth with it. I mean, it's the things that you could do with NotebookLM Plus are really, it's really very, very cool. And it's very accurate because it's only answering you based on the sources that you've provided. Even if you're doing traditional legal research, you could find the cases, put it into NotebookLM, and have it synthesize this stuff and have a conversation with those cases, right? I could spend a whole hour just on NotebookLM. So anyway, moving on to Paxton. The reason Paxton is third is it is the legal AI research tool you've actually been looking for, right? So in a separate AI presentation, I talk about the difference between retrieval augmented generation systems that are using legal-specific large language models or GPT wrappers, right? So VLEX, Westlaw, and Lexis's AI software. They are all powered by OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, like all these like large language models we've all heard of, we're all playing with. And they're connecting it to a database of case law to answer your legal research questions. And they're doing a pretty good job, right? But that's like giving an English major or a generalist, a really smart generalist, legal research materials to go and do research for you before giving you an answer. What Paxton has done with their legal research is they have a legal-specific large language model. They are using OpenAI and they're using Claude and they're using all these other ones too when the purpose is correct. Like when I ask Paxton to translate something from English to Spanish and Spanish to English, like I know it's using ChatGPT because I've benchmarked it side by side. It's the same exact translation, right? But for the legal specific things like legal research, legal analysis, legal drafting, they're using, I suspect, their legal large language model. And so that's like giving the assignment to a really smart lawyer. So if you give a really smart lawyer, a really smart generalist or English major, legal research materials, and ask them to go do legal research, who's going to do a better job? The lawyer, right? And so while Paxton can be expensive at $200 a month, if you pay for it annually in advance, you save a little bit of money. But that's the tip of the iceberg with Paxton, right? That's just the legal research solution. It also does massive document data massive document data set analysis, or just a singular document, right? And drafting and redrafting, like right inside of it, right? So sort of what Google Workspace does, but it's legal specific. So I'm using Paxton to analyze contracts, to draft contracts. I'm a transactional attorney, so I'm throwing a lot of stuff into Paxton. Now, I have been using Google Workspace's NotebookLM Plus side by side with Paxton, and I'm still getting really valuable stuff from both of them that I really like it. Now, what Paxton started doing very recently, and I really like that they're doing this, another AI company does this too called GCA AI, is Paxton has started asking me clarifying questions. Because factual accuracy matters for lawyers, right? And so it asking clarifying questions before it gives you an answer is amazing, right? It's getting to actually become a legal AI associate rather than just an assistant. Really powerful stuff. Also, you don't have to overthink your initial prompts with Paxton, because at the end it gives at the end of the analysis that it gives you, or the end of whatever it's giving you, it has 5 follow-up prompts that are really high quality. So you don't have to overthink your prompting. Descript is on here as well. Way more affordable. Now, you could roll it out at $144 annually. I'm paying $288 annually because I want more cool AI features. This is the tool John talked about earlier. I absolutely love Descript. I mean, I could spend a whole hour-long presentation just talking about Descript, but totally worth the price. It is not legal tech, right? They are a mass market tool. I would pay for Descript when I'm paying for Paxton, right? And I've been a subscriber for so long that I'm actually grandfathered in, and I have unlimited usage for features inside of my $288 a year price. So I am never unsubscribing from Descript. And if you check out my podcast, it is all powered by Descript. And what's really cool about Descript, and one of the reasons I don't use ChatGPT, is first of all, Paxton uses ChatGPT in some instances. But OpenAI is an investor in Descript. Descript is a startup. And so Descript has access to the most advanced versions of OpenAI's chat, whatever it is, whatever we're on, 4.1 or 4.5 or whatever. So you're able to interact with your transcript inside of the tool with the most advanced version of ChatGPT. It doesn't call it that. It calls it their Underlord AI. But oh boy, is it powerful, right? Incredibly powerful. Can't recommend enough. Perplexity. So Perplexity, and again, really you could subscribe to any, I'd kind of recommend you subscribe to all of these things at once. But if you had to pick in which order based on the revenue that your firm is generating, this is what I suggest. Perplexity is $200 a year, $20 a month, and it is the answer engine you've been looking for, right? So I have not used Google for search in over a year now. I just use Perplexity. And I've already started to get some potential clients who said they found me using Perplexity. So we don't yet know how SEO is changing the game here, but what you can do right now is you could go to perplexity.ai and you could type in "tell me about" and put in your name or your firm name and see what it says. And you could click on sources and it will show you the sources that it's pulling from, right? These are not all going to be the first page of Google results. These are going to be from what Perplexity has determined is highly relevant to the question that you've asked it. Now, why I suggest you use the paid version instead of just the free version is, going back to Paxton's suggested follow-up prompts, Perplexity, if you're still learning how to be a prompt engineer and you want to kind of you're still thinking I don't know what to ask. You ask the longest, worst prompt that you possibly can, and Perplexity uses its proprietary AI to rephrase your prompt and maybe even break it down into multiple prompts, right? Is that worth $20 a month? Oh, you bet it is. And then if you're on the desktop version, I think it's harder to look at this on the mobile version, but on the desktop version, you could click on a drop down and it will show you how it recontextualized and rephrased your prompts. So if you want to both have a much better answer engine than Google is for search, and you want to learn how to become a better prompter, Perplexity is the tool for you, right? And I should say also Paxton, this is true of Paxton as well, and Perplexity, it gives you citations NotebookLM Plus, Paxton, Perplexity, they give you citations, which is so important for us as lawyers, right? So anyway, I could go on and on. Substack is another tool I use. I'll just skip to that because we are running out of time here. I'm using Substack for blogging. And going into the content creation game, when I click publish on Substack, it also publishes it as a podcast. But what's nice about Substack is it's free. If you want a custom domain There's a one-time, so I know it says annual fee, but if you're just signing up for this, so this is just the first year, there's a one-time $50 fee to do a custom domain. So whatever your law firm domain is, mine is subscriptionattorney.com, you could do like media.subscriptionattorney.com, podcast.subscriptionattorney.com, news.blog. Whatever your domain is, right? Because it needs a subdomain. So since I use Law Subscribed as my main like blogging content platform, I just have www. But for your firm, for one-time $50 payment, you could have a fully back-ended by Substack blog and SEO machine. Like I do zero SEO stuff. My SEO game is really good, and it's all because of Substack. So I've kind of hacked it in that regard. Oh, and this is actually a misprint. Zoom is $159.90, not 99 cents. So, all right. So paid software rollout suggestions, right? And I've got to catch up on my slides here, so bear with me. So I kind of already talked a lot about this, like when I was going through that, right? So Adobe, right? Don't do that. Paxton, you could think of it as instead of paying an associate, whatever, $6,000 to $10,000 a month in terms of salary, you're only paying $200 a month or less if you buy their annual plan, right? Because it allows you to scale because it's actually helping you do substantive legal work. $650 is great for me because I'm a fractional general counsel to small business owners. It's like HR and employment document automation. But if that's not good for your practice area, find something in your practice area that's like that, right? The reason I have Lawline on there is, sometimes it's good to just get your CLE credits. But what I like about platforms like Lawline that are in the business of CLE is they have a lot of courses on there that are super, super substantive and help you like learn a new practice area or learn other things, right? And I am also faculty on Lawline, but I think it's, whatever platform you have like that, Lawline is the one that I happen to use because I'm faculty. So in conclusion, right, here are some final tips. Context matters, right? Some things will be the wrong size for your space, right? So think about your space and how you fill it, right? Another cool, and some of these final tips are just like, they're not like full on like carve outs that are features, but some things I just want to share. So if you have an iPhone and you take a screenshot of a web page or of certain like things, there's a button. If you click on it, and then you could click on full page, and even if it's just like a website, it will give you a full screenshot of the full website. So that's just a really cool hack I wanted to share. Another hack I wanted to share, which again, this is just like inside iOS, is iOS being the iPhone operating system, that you could set up something called guided access. So for example, my kid loves to look at pictures on my phone, but I can't give my kid my phone. She's only 4, and I have client contact information on there, and I have access to my email and everything. Well, when you set up guided access, you click your lock button 3 times, you set a passcode, and now whoever has your phone can't exit the app unless they click the lock button 3 times and know the passcode. So really great if you have to share your phone with somebody and you have an iPhone and you don't want them getting outside the app, right? Guided access. It's very cool. Another thing inside of Google Workspace, and I'm sure Microsoft does this too, but you could have up to, I think it's 30 email aliases, right? So like I'm only paying the $12 a month, but I have like 20 different email addresses, but it doesn't cost me any more. So there's this thing called email aliasing, and like it's great. I highly recommend. You could do a Perplexity search on how do I set up email aliasing in either Microsoft or Google. Another cool tip, and I might include this in the future as a software/platform solution, but for your office mail, I do this for personal. I realized I could do it for my office mail. USPS has something called informed delivery. So I get an email every day with all the mail scanned, like just the outside of the envelope that I get at home and at my firm. So it's amazing. So now as a virtual law firm, I only go physically to go pick up my mail when I get an email from USPS that says I have something there that's relevant for me to go pick up. And then, of course, I set it up on UPS and FedEx as well, so I get notifications when I get stuff delivered there. But that's easy to do. But you might not have known you could also do that for USPS. It's called informed delivery. I do not have the Apple Mail app on here because I really don't use it. I only use it for one thing. I actually, since I'm in Google Workspace, I prefer having the Google Gmail app because I have access to Gemini inside that app, and it can summarize long emails and do some other great things right inside the app. But I do use Apple Mail if, say, somebody emails my consulting email, but they meant to email my law firm email, I could respond from the other domain. And so I do use Apple Mail just for that, but it didn't make the list because it's not really something I'm using very often. Again, look for bundled deals on hardware or software because, you may not need to buy the things that I've purchased, but you may be able to get a discount if you, like me, want 3 chairs or 3 different things. Like you could bundle some of these. I think the footrests, they sell them in pairs of 2. If you wanted to pay only like 10% more, you could get 2 footrests instead of just 1. So think about that. Look for bundled deals. Finally, check to see if there are updated versions or old ones, because sometimes if there's an old version, it might be cheaper and it still does the thing that you need it to do, or the old version is like way cheap and maybe you want to buy the updated version. If you're recording remotely, set your iPhone voice memos to lossless in settings. It helps increase the audio quality. Use Chrome tabs for groups to help organize your tabs. Again, it's not really like a separate solution. It's inside of Chrome. I didn't mention Costco. I mentioned Costco a little bit earlier, but again, if you could use a Costco business account, consider that. Look for big sale days, Prime Days, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I have USB-C for everything, but realize that USB-C isn't all the same. Some transfer audio and video, and some just transfer charging. So be aware of that. And those different cables are inside my presentation. And another thing I like to do in Canva, because I didn't have a chance to talk about each software solution, but I think this is really cool. They have a QR code generator, right? And a background remover. And so like these are some of the things I use in Canva for my business fairly frequently that are just worth a shout out. So here's my contact information. If you want to get to the link with all of the solutions, it's this bottom link for the tech stack, right? So those are just the hardware solutions. I don't have links up yet for the software solutions. You could always do a search for everything, but if you just want to click access to those links, that's the link. There's my podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn and all that. So with that, I will just leave that up for a second. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.